Good. Do you have a room for people there, John? What do you got?
What's that?
Do you have colleagues up there or are you speaking to the camera? What do
I'm
you got?
speaking to the camera right now.
Okay, awesome. Well, I am very excited to have this presentation, John. I know that you came to us 2.5 years ago,
Just
2 years
about
ago.
two, almost exactly two.
Okay, and I know you and I had conversations about your passion for real estate, but really your passion for people. And building your business by building relationships. And we had talked at that time about what it looked like to have some interaction on this topic. So glad that we're here finally and we can have this conversation. Um, Susie, I'm not sure if you know this, but John does every year does a charity golf outing, and he raises money for people who, what is it, Protect the Package is your cause.
Those that have fighting any type of cancers. They used to strictly be man cancers, hence protect the package, but we've expanded that to children, men, women, depending
Yeah.
on what the situation is.
Yeah, and all of that has grown out of relationship and gratitude. So, an expert on this topic, I'm super excited to hear what you have to share this morning, John. I'm going to hand it over to you and look forward to your training. Thanks so much for doing this with us.
You bet. Thank you. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining me this morning. I had no idea kind of what to expect in regards to people interested or numbers of people being able to come by. But since I joined Keller in October of 19, I've been talking about, like Diana said, doing some kind of training. My background is in school counseling. I was a high school counselor for 14 years. And so the relationship building and the gratitude just is kind of part of what I did on a daily basis, working with students quite often and also working with teachers and administration to kind of bring people together. So when opportunities were presented that were a little bit more technical, a little bit more systematic, I realized that that is not quite yet in my comfort zone. So I feel like November being the kickoff of the holiday season, it kind of lends right towards Thanksgiving and gratitude. And so it's kind of my month and how I feel like we can take what it is that this month kind of kickstarts and bring it into our everyday business, but just into our everyday lives. My previous employer, great opportunity, culture and trainings weren't really big. So when I came to Keller, like I said before, lots of trainings, lots of opportunities, a little bit overwhelming, but it's so much what I was looking for and what I was needing, opposed to just showing up, working, and collecting a check. This whole feeling of family and gratitude is something that I think will keep agents not only productive and excited, but here for the long haul. And there's something to say about having that loyalty and having that culture that makes you want to succeed and be here for each other for a long period of time. I'm not a technical individual. I definitely do what I need to make sure that my clients are taken care of. But that's something that, again, I'm here to get out of my comfort zone. That's why I came to become more comfortable with the technical side, but just, again, focusing more on what it is we're here to talk about today. First off, what I'd like to do before we go any further, I want to introduce a gentleman that kind of speaks towards what it is my business plan is set up to be, and that's working with people that I trust, working with people that I completely understand where they're coming from and how they can help my clients. And I'm just reading off a sheet right now, but then I'm gonna just kind of loosen it up in a little bit here. But Spencer Paul is the new owner of Wisconsin Property Inspectors. His father-in-law, Mike Marzon, owned the company, ran the company from its inception. But now that he has a team that he trusts and people around him that he knew could take the company and continue to build it, he has taken the step back. And now Spencer is the new owner of Wisconsin Property Inspectors. And I wanted to give him a couple minutes to kind of talk about his business, and how he works with all of us as agents. And then I'll get back into kind of how and why I have him here and why I asked him to be our hospitality sponsor. So Spencer, if you want to come up here.
Good morning. How are you guys doing? As John said, my name is Spencer Paul, and I am the new owner of Wisconsin Property Inspections. I don't know if you have ever met my father-in-law, Mike Marzian. He started 5-1 Property Inspections about 6 years ago. And then about 2 years after that, he realized he wanted to become a multi-inspector firm, but no one else is really 5 feet tall. So he changed the name to Wisconsin Property Inspections and brought me on. I was his first employee. And here we are 4 years later. I've taken over for him. We are, like I said, a multi-inspector firm, which really gives us the power to be very fluid and to be very efficient versus some other one-man shows. We have also kind of adopted all of the brand new legislation that is involved with home inspection, and that was helped created by the WRA as far as the reports and the definition of defect. And it's something we've always done. One thing Mike and I are really good about is staying on the forefront of all that and making sure that we work with our clients and you guys as realtors to give the best inspection experience as possible and to make sure that everyone has the best information about that future home they're buying. So if you need me, I'm going to leave a couple of box of cards in the office for John, but with Wisconsin Property Inspections. And again, my name is Spencer, so thanks a lot.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. All right. So my relationship with Spencer and his company is a huge part of my business. In my 9 years of real estate, I rarely pay for marketing. I've sent out 2 non-focused mailers in my 9 years. And I really don't have much of a social media presence. And that's not like something I'm proud of. That's just who I am. And that's how I've actually came into this business and slowly making some adjustments. But the big thing is that I found my success in recommendations, referrals, and repeat business. And it keeps me as busy as I should be. I've got a wife and 2 younger kids and want to see them a decent amount and have them, remember who I am. So I'm not always out and about running. So it's kept me definitely busy. So Spencer and his team at Wisconsin Property Inspections do such a great job to take how I know to work with my clients, the customer service, the follow-up, the appreciation, the respect, and carry that on during a time that is usually the most stressful part of a real estate transaction. So that relationship that I formed with them when I met Mike originally as a 5-1 inspector, where he came walking in with his big ladders, because he always said that he could get to the low stuff but needed the ladders to get to the high stuff because he was 5 feet 1 inches tall. That humor and that first impression, and then just the way he did his reports, has now snowballed to Spencer and his team doing pretty much every one of my inspections. I give, obviously, my clients the opportunity to bring in whoever they want, not forcing them to use this company, but because I know in the end that relationship is going to continue on throughout and my clients are going to be better off for it. I really appreciate Spencer and his company for doing that. So that's why I brought him in today, not just for the hospitality and not for just a plug for his business, even though I think you all should use them, but just to show like how that is one of the many areas that can be a non-technical side of real estate, to work with those individuals that you keep very close to you. Now, I technically, by the definition, am not a team. I'm an individual agent. I've dabbled with the idea of joining a team, forming a team, but in the end, like I said, I'm a sole agent. But the reality is, I have a team. When I talk with my clients, I talk about the relationships that I've got with inspectors, with lenders, with staging, insurance agents, financial planners, contractors, transaction management, which is a new thing for me. But essentially, having a Rolodex of people that I can count on, that I can turn to. And from the get-go, my Rolodex, and for those younger agents that don't know what a Rolodex is, it's that paper thing, that little tabulation thing that you have for, hey, where's my chimney people? And you can go to it and find your chimney person or your lender. It's an old school way of just keeping your contacts. So when I say Rolodex, that's what I mean. But I've purposely been very particular about keeping that Rolodex very small and continually vetting out people along the way, making sure that their first impression they made on me is also the impression that they're going to continue to make throughout the years. I've got two examples that I want to share, and I'll specifically name out some people. Jake Showman from Bank of England. He's a gentleman that I met when I first got into real estate at a golf outing 9 years ago, or 8 years ago or so. And he was there sponsoring a hole, and I met his team, and we met and we had lunch, but at that time already, I had already had a couple lenders that I had made a strong relationship with. And out of respect for me and just how we met, I said, hey, just stay in the bullpen. Just hold off. Down the way, things change, things evolve in this business. But let's keep this relationship. But just right now, it's not going to be too strong on the business side of things. We might just get together and grow that personal relationship. So as the years passed, one of my lenders moved and retired. And that was a great relationship that I had with that lender. So I needed to find somebody else to kind of fill that void. And Jake, being the guy that he is, just kind of waited in the wings, and we talked. And since then, our business has grown, and he's one of my go-tos as far as lending goes. On the same side of things, the relationships that I have with my title company. And I'm sitting in a room right now with Focus right next door, and they're amazing. And I've worked with their people in the past. But before I left my last company, there was some talk that I was going to be moving to Keller. And so Proactive Title came kind of knocking again after years of asking, what do I have to do to get your business? I said, well, I already have title. I'm already set there. I'm loyal to them. So I'm just going to have you hold off. But the reality of that is, again, things change. My title situation changed with my last company. And so it opened up the door for Lexi and her company. And so that's just kind of how that's evolved. And because I constantly stay in contact with them, and I help my clients with that introduction, and then they take that relationship and go with it, I stick with them. And I know that I can be confident that they're going to get it to closing, or Jake's going to work through different unique situations with my clients and counsel them, getting back to the whole idea of me being a counselor from the get-go. But then also, my wife is a stager. Her staging company, or that she works for, Casa Labella, was just here yesterday. And just having those go-to people that you know are going to be there. Night and day, we all know, we work very odd hours. We don't work 9 to 5. So when you find somebody that is strictly 9 to 5, it's usually not a good match. But in the end, because of how I do my business with referrals and recommendations, it's naturally come to, I've had quite a few transactions because of these relationships with people, not asking for it. I'm not going to them and saying, hey, will you work with me only if you feed me back some business? You know, that's like, it's an unconditional relationship that you need to go into if you're thinking of your clients first. And with that, just naturally typically comes some kind of business back, usually when you're least expecting it. So I'm sure those of you out there, you already have those relationships started, but I'm living proof in this business that if you truly focus in on them, they can be a true source of happiness in this industry, less stress in this industry, but also business. And that has been my mailing, that has been my marketing, strictly to this point. Again, knowing that there's certain things that I would like to add to grow my business even further. But the last couple of years, having 25 to 30 transactions and being able to provide for my family based off of what my strengths are, has been an awesome feeling. So that's just something that I kind of wanted to touch on in relation, as far as the relationship goes with my team. but then also gratitude. It's a two-way thing. It's like, you know, hey, you're doing a great job for me. Let them know that. How often do we go through our days where we're working so hard, we're working so fast, and if you just get that one word of encouragement, whether it's from your team leader, or whether it's from just somebody coming through the office, or if it's from a friend that calls, and you get that word of encouragement or thanks, you remember who that person was that lifted you up, that brought that positive energy into the room when you definitely needed it. So reach out to them. And, you know, when you go out to a restaurant and you get great service, and that person comes by to you and you say, thank you for the great service, but then you leave a 5% tip, you're not really matching up your gratitude. So like in this case, with all these people I've listed here with inspectors, lenders, staging, whatnot, it's important to thank them. But if they're doing a great job and you trust in them, show them that trust, show them that gratitude by sending them business and getting that business to them, because they deserve it. They've done such a great job. And that's the way to follow up your great comments to your server with an outstanding 20 to 25% tip. You're following it up with something that's going to help provide for their family as well. So I often talk to my clients and say, hey, if you don't go with these certain people that I highly recommend, it's just not time to hit Google and hit Angie's List to find the cheapest, fastest, most readily available. If you're finding the cheapest, fastest, most readily available, they're cheapest probably because they feel they need to cut their prices down to get business. Or if they're readily available, that's also not good because they're not out working. So there's a reason for that. So sometimes if you have to pay a little bit extra, or if you have to wait an extra day or two, there's a reason, and you'll be rewarded for doing such a thing. So here's a big one. Gratitude in relationships. I mentioned all those other industries within our business, within our world, but relationships with other agents. Now, obviously here at Keller, we have an environment that just promotes teamwork, that promotes sharing, that promotes positive energy. And so now that COVID is still a thing, but we're now kind of doing more in-person stuff. Charlie talks about it all the time, how it's so vital to get out of that sweatshirt, t-shirt environment at home and get out and interact with each other and just feed off of each other. What I'm referring to here with gratitude and relationships with all other agents, I'm talking about those two outside of this office. When we are in a crazy market that we're in right now, your name, not your strong pre-approval letter, not your potentially fair housing market breaking letter to the sellers, those things aren't the first thing that the listing agent gets. It's your email with your name on it and your crest or your letterhead. So that is the first impression that that agent is going to get when you send an offer, when there's 10 other offers on that property. So your reputation is going to be sliding through their email or a text or whatever first thing. And when they get that, you want them to be excited that they got an offer from Susie Austin. That they're going to be like, yes, I know this agent. I know she works tirelessly. She's on time with her deadlines. She's going to write a crisp, clean offer, and she's going to communicate until the end and potentially even beyond. So that's the kind of stuff that I'm referring to. I've been in it just like everybody else has over the last couple of years with fighting off multiple offers. I had a stretch, and this is just a quick brag because there's definitely not the same kind of stretch, but I had a stretch with 11, 10, and 8 other offers that we're competing with. And I'm sure some of you have stories just like this as well, but my clients got all 3 of those. And it was like, wow, because there's been times where I've been up against one other offer and I'm not the end winner in that. So it was just a really great stretch. And I look back at that and go, okay, yeah, we wrote strong and we wrote aggressive offers, yet smart. We had some protections where we potentially still could hang on to a threat of protection. But then I look back at it too and go, hey, that listing agent, him and I just did 2 transactions in the last 2 months, or her and I did a transaction a year ago and it went extremely well. But then there's follow-up with them, whether it's through social media or just at events, you know, purposely and genuinely caring about relationships with others outside of Keller. Even though we do Keller to Keller transactions, there's enough of them that we don't, that you want to make sure that that letterhead, that address, or that name, when you send over that offer, is brought into somebody's email box with excitement. It now puts your clients in such a better position. Somebody that they know is just really quick to work, or hey, if you have a big team, that's great. Just make sure that at some point, if you're the agent that's sending over that offer, that you still reach out and make that communication with the listing party, so they know that, yep, I'm still working with so-and-so, and it's not just his or her entire team, and I might see him or her at closing. So if that is you, if you're working a big team, that's great. Just again, take that time to, you know, put that reputation out there that has gotten you to the place you've been to. Don't forget about where you started, and just know that it's going to continue no matter how individual you are or how big you are as a team. I wanted to share a quick story with a gentleman that I met a few years ago, Jerry Groshnak. He's owner of Exit Realty. When I was with my previous employer, he contacted me a few times saying, hey, John, we'd love to get you over here and work with Exit. And I appreciated his offer and his reasoning, you know, and I just politely declined. I was in no interest in moving over there. But this is a gentleman that is a couple years older than I am and has life experiences in other industries. And I knew all the backstory, and I was like very curious to get the chance to get to know him. Business-wise, but more just as a person, somebody that I can look, you know, role model potentially to, because he's been there and done that. So I told him, I said, yeah, we can get together for a drink or for lunch, but as long as we don't talk about business, I want to talk about life. And he's like, yeah, it sounds great. And so we met up at my favorite spot in Hubertus, Bill does. And we had a cocktail, and we started talking just about life and where we're at and where we want to go. And I bring that up because he comes up a little bit later on is that after that first meeting, the one thing that came of it, even though we didn't talk business at all, the one thing that did come of it for him is I said, hey, Jerry, I really appreciate what we talked about today and just getting to know you a little bit. It's great to have an ally in the business. Even though you're with another company, we're still kind of all playing the same game. So it's so good to have that strong relationship. I said, what this has done for me is made me realize that I, as an agent that was recruiting for another company for a satellite office, am not going to reach out to any of your agents. Out of respect for who you are and how you're running your business, I'm not going to communicate with them. And he's got enough agents that he wasn't worried about one person trying to grab something. But that was like me thinking, well, I'm not going to mess with that. Other agents from my company might reach out to them, but it wasn't going to be through me. So anyway, flash forward to, let's see, it was about this time last year. So around November or December of last year, he asked if we could grab some lunch. And so we went and grabbed some lunch, and he said to me, he's like, John, I just noticed that you've had a really good year. And your numbers have gone from here to here. And I'm curious, like, what's happened? Like, how did that get there? And what's changed? New systems, new technologies, new social media approach. And I sat back and I just kind of laughed. And I said, you know, Jerry, that was my goal when I first came to Keller, was to lean more on systems, to work more with technology, to do stuff to fill in the gaps when the gaps do happen in this industry, because we all know they do happen. I said, but honestly, none of those have happened. It's just, there's something that just occurred, and I'll get into that in a little bit too. And he just kind of laughed. He goes, so like, you have nothing. You have no words of wisdom for me to try to impart even in my business or to my other agents when I bring this information back to them at our next meeting. I said, honestly, I don't. So we finished up lunch. We had a great time with it. Again, mostly talked about non-business stuff. But in the end, he kind of summarized what I had said throughout our meeting. And this is a summary that we came up with. My 3-step system to success in the non-technical real estate world. One, he goes, so let me get this straight. He goes, you trust in God, you love on people, and you work your ass off. I said, yeah. I said, that's what I brought to you today. And he goes, all right, so trust God, love on people, work your ass off. That's your system. I said, well, yeah, I get, if you have to put a name to it, I said, yes, I guess I do have a system. It's not black and white. I often live gray. And so he just started laughing. He goes, that's a lot to bring back. He's like, I gained something, we had a great lunch, great talk. He goes, but here it is. I thought you're going to come to me with some really enlightened kind of new age thing that you came up with. And I'm like, no, it's not. It just gets back to kind of the basics and the importance to remember that no matter how successful you're getting in this industry, that you get back to the basics and you don't forget those things, and the business will then provide for you. You can't just sit still. That's that number 3 there where it says work your ass off. In my world, God is that person that's that overall looking over me. And my 2 cents on that is God likes hitting a moving target. The sitting target's too easy. So if you're sitting there just waiting for business, if you're sitting there just wondering why me, why isn't this working for me, it's because you're not moving. Give them a challenge. Do something, whether it's just getting out to network with people or going to a charity event, because in your heart, that's a charity that you're excited about. While you're there, talk to people, and things just kind of snowball. But if you look at this step 1, step 2, step 3, trust God, love on people, work your ass off. The number 2 part, obviously, I think that kind of goes back to why I got into counseling, wanting to help people get through the social emotional stuff that happens in their life. And so that was just something that was imparted on me early in my life, and then it worked my way through college, and it just naturally became part of my career. But after that went off to the sunset and I moved completely into real estate, I found that the 6-year master's degree that I worked on, replacing it with a 72-hour real estate license. I joke about that to people, but the reality is those 6 years of my master's degree and my 14 years of counseling experience has greatly lended to this industry. Even more so over these last couple of years with how you have to counsel your clients through the emotional ups and downs. When you watch HGTV and all the TV shows that make real estate look very simple, you'll sometimes hear agents talk about how it's not a good idea to get emotionally attached to a house, especially in this business where now you're working with 10 to 20 offers on a house. Don't get emotionally attached. I tell my clients right off the bat, I'm like, that's such a lie. It's like, it's so not, who's going to spend $250,000, $500,000, $1 million on something they don't love? Unless you're an investor just trying to fill up your portfolio and get a bunch of units so you can rent them out, that's dollars. So you can just look at that and go, okay, no big deal. If I don't get it for this price, fine. But a majority of the people that we work with are emotionally involved, and they're not going to put that huge investment into their future on something that's okay. So that's why we have to look at that number 2 step, love on people, during our business and also in our lives. But in our business, it's still an emotional experience. If you're not big on that, you're finding it a struggle in this industry, maybe commercial is your thing, where it's just more cubicles and numbers. But if you truly want to work on that referral, recommendation, repeat, you have to have number two. But number one for me, and again, whether it's God, whether it's something else in your life, any other type of religion or whatnot, for me, it's God. For me and my family, that's what it is. But my hope and my prayer for you guys is that you realize there's something much bigger than you, that our success is not, our success in this industry, in life, is not self-driven. That there's something else that's pushing us into certain positions, interactions, encounters, relationships that will help put limitless success into our worlds. And so if I think back to this, I mentioned at the beginning that October 19th is October of 2019 is when I started with Kelly. At that point, I went on a 6-month stretch with nothing, no transactions, nothing on the stove. I came in doing around $6 to $8 million a year. That's the level of agent that I was when I was doing both counseling and real estate. And then I switched over just to real estate, but that's about where I was. For whatever reason, from October of 19 to March of 20, I did nothing. And I didn't blame that on anything. It wasn't the switch to companies. I was still extremely excited every time I came here, and I knew I made the right choice for me and my family. It was just this unique, weird situation that in my previous 7 years, never experienced a dry spell like that. So what's funny about that is I was watching my savings account go like this, pretty severely. And so that was like October of 19. In January of 20, maybe even closer to February, when the account is getting really low, my wife comes to me and says, "John, we should buy a new house." And I laughed. I said, "Oh, because we're going to sell our house so we can move into an apartment, because we're going to need to do that in order to pay the bills, because right now this is getting very close to this, which is the bottom." She's like, no, we need more land. We need more room. We have kids that like to run around. I said, yeah, more land, more room. And where's this magical property going to be? She goes, we should look out in Lake Country. I said, okay. All right, we're living in Hartford right now. The reason we came out to Hartford 20 or 12 years ago was because things were less expensive. We were able to get a piece of land and build a house 12 years ago, where even 12 years ago, acre property in Lake Country was 100,000, 125,000 12 years ago. So I said, okay, so you want to go you want to buy a new house at a time where we are like right here. And she says, John, look at your history. Just look at what's happened in the past. You're good at what you do. Give it to God, have faith. Things are going to change. And we should just do this. So God bless her, because she is somebody that can just jump and know that she's going to get caught, or there's going to be a cushion landing. Even if there's rocks along the way, the bottom is still going to be cushioned because she has God. So she's able to do that. Where I'm much more of a calculated jump, where I'm like, hey, all right, I'm getting closer to the edge. I'm getting closer to the edge. Okay, now I'll go. So I played along with it. We went out and started looking at houses. And out here, they're like $400,000 houses. And I'm looking at it going, all right, I got an interior design wife. I've got myself who knows a little bit about carpentry. We had a beautiful house in Hartford, just a small little postage stamp of a lot. I can look at this $400,000 house and I can say, yep, I need $200,000 of fixing just to make it to the house that we currently have. And now I'll even be more in debt. Not a really good idea. So anyway, fast forward, we're looking at these prices and I'm going, hey, you work for a home builder. Ask them how much they would charge to have us build with them. I don't even know why I'm asking these questions at the time, because this is now February. So I'm now entering month 5 of nothing, but I'm still entertaining the idea. So She goes, I can't just ask them for a discount to build a house. I'm like, no, I didn't ask you to ask them for a discount. I just asked you to ask them how much would they charge you to build with them. And she's been working with them for 10 years. So thankfully they said, hey, you know, of course, your family, you're an employee for so long, we'll be able to build you this incredible house at an employee discount. And I'm like, okay, great. So if that even is possible, that leaves us $75,000-ish to buy a lot. A piece of land that I wanted at least an acre. And everybody here knows that $75,000 to get an acre in Lake Country, or anywhere for that matter, unless you're central and northern Wisconsin, is rare. So I wound up expanding the search a little bit more back towards the Holy Hill area where we're from, and found a piece of land that was priced still a lot above what we could afford. But I talked to the agents and offered up an offer for $75,000, and knowing that it was well below asking price, and we got it for $77,500. So at that point, I'm like, okay, great. I have a piece of land that I got at a really good deal. If nothing else happens real estate wise, and we wind up having to sell our house, I could still sell this piece of land and even make a little bit of money on it potentially. So now we have this piece of land, it's coming up on March, still no business. And I'm like, okay, let's entertain this. How much is it going to cost to build this house? So we get to the point of getting all the numbers in for the construction of the house. And at that point, I'm like, all right, well, still nothing coming in, but what's the worst that can happen? So I'm like, worst case scenario, okay, pride and foreclosure. All right, well, once you get past your pride, it's usually the biggest thing that is the problem. And then I have enough family and friends that if I needed to bunk up in their house for a while, I figured that could be okay. So while back in January, Becky's like, yep, just trust and go for it. It took me to March of 20, for me to finally look at the numbers, which were crazy. We did get into building before the extreme rise in costs, so it was okay. But God's truth here is, from the day that we decided to sign that building contract in early March, which just so happened to coincide with the COVID lockdown, from the day that we signed that building contract to today, my phone hasn't stopped ringing. I started 2020 with nothing first quarter, ended 2020 as the #1 sales agent in the Lake Country office for the last 3 quarters, so totaling for that year. Again, not a brag to get me business. It's just for this situation, for gratitude, for relationships, and looking at, for my personal non-technical system, once I took care of #1, trust in God, the rest just kind of took care of itself. That doesn't mean, even though I have that very obvious story blasted into my head that I can share at a whim anytime, it's not that I'm still ready to jump at any time. You'd think I would be able to, after how it's been now a 2-year stretch of continual work above and beyond what I could ever have imagined. It's still a little bit challenged from time to time, but whatever your non-technical 3 are, I want you to start really kind of putting a focus into that. It might not be my 3, or it might be my 3, but in a different order. For me, the importance of the order is key. And as long as I keep working on #1, then the end result is going to be there. More so than working my butt off. Loving on people and #1 kind of come pretty close together. But we can work smarter and not harder. And if working smarter means giving more time to people, giving more time to God, then still with your end result being that much stronger, I don't see why you wouldn't want to do that. So that's kind of wraps up what I was wanting to talk about today. I appreciate those of you that took the time to listen. It's been a while since I've done presentations. As you could tell, as we went on in this meeting, I got away from the little bit that I had written down and I just went back to what I'm comfortable with. So I appreciate you getting through those first couple minutes with me, because it's, once I get back on that bike, it's easy to ride. But if you look at upcoming, and I'll work out on the details with the team here to figure out when these are going to occur. But I have 2 more non-technical real estate trainings that I would love to do. And they hit pretty hard. The next one, as you see, stereotypes and prejudices. This goes back to my grad school years when I met a professor that really just kind of opened up my eyes to prepare me for my life as a counselor, and how that dramatically affected how I could best reach my students. That same type of internal check on ourselves in real estate, I could see definitely helping us as individuals, and then transitioning right into our business. So that's going to be in-person only. I haven't even told the team that, but because of the way the questions that are asked and the way that we kind of really open up during that, I'd like to just have it be in-person only. So if you can get 1, 2, or 3, or 20, that'd be great. And then the last one is getting rid of the hurry up. As you've heard, you know, I've referenced my faith. That one hit me so hard. That actually, Dustin Johnston is a pastor at the church that I go to. He has a 25-minute sermon that, as I was hearing it, it reminded me of a couple of conversations I've had with some agents that are extremely awesome people, respect the heck out of them. And we were talking about some of the challenges that we have personally in our lives with the hurry up, and how that has a trickle-down effect negatively into just our outlook on certain things. So that's going to be a couple months away, but just wanted to give you that heads up ahead of time that it's going to have a little bit of a faith twist to it, because obviously when Dustin is preaching, he references the Bible here and there. So if that's not your thing, I understand. If it's not your thing and you could still feel like there's a great message there, that's truly what it is. So that'll be down the way, but just keep a look out for those 2. And again, I really appreciate Spencer for coming in here today from Wisconsin Property Inspectors. If you're needing somebody, please talk to me and I'll get you in contact with Spencer, and just Diana for the introduction. And any questions out there?
I have one.
Yes, Susan.
When you talk about loving on people, how do you, and I know how you can do this, I'm interested in your perspective. What do you do when you are working with another agent from a different brokerage and they're making all these mistakes and you have to either correct them or have them correct them? And it can get kind of irritating. And I know you don't act irritated, but how do you handle that with your number 2, love on people?
That's pretty funny, because like if I actually followed the notes that I wrote down, I actually reference that in here, in that slide that I talk about having that relationship with other agents. It's extremely challenging, but you always, and I know you know this, but it's just, you need to hear it again and again, that we always need to be the calm for the clients and the other agent. I just finished a transaction, closed on it yesterday, where the agent, I've worked with her before, and so I was excited to work with her again, but this time around was different. There was just a little bit more of an edge, and some things forgotten that didn't seem to be her thing. And even if I didn't have those past experiences, I have to pull myself back and think, I don't know what's going on with this person. Maybe I haven't worked with them before and they're brand new. I was brand new at one point, or I was a year in and thought I knew something, but I really didn't know anything. And just need to really pull it back and not know what's going on. Not knowing if they don't have a great training, or not knowing if they're just going through a personal struggle family-wise. And even if it feels like you're doing their work, at times that you think, hey, this is not me, this is on him or her, it's just knowing that, yep, it might be extra work for you. It might frustrate you, but in the end, your client's being taken care of. In the end, you're getting to that closing where days after the closing, your client's in their dream home, they're loving life, and you're hoping that you were able to take some of those struggles that maybe were part of that working relationship with another agent, and you deflect them from your clients and not push that onto them, not talk bad about the other agent, not make excuses for the situation. Anything, I mean, any other follow-up to that, or, you know, you've got to,
no, I realize, yeah, you have to treat them like you don't know what's going on with them. But I had one agent that other people described as arrogant, and he just, you know, I don't think there was anything going on with him. I don't know, but he just constantly made all these mistakes, and they were really sloppy, and you couldn't get a hold of him ever. So,
yeah,
go ahead.
And that's what I was talking about too before, whether you're an individual agent that's working extremely hard, constantly go, or you're working on a team and you're able to pass off some of that stuff, and then you just check in every once in a while. And I don't know if that's a situation with your agent that has now gotten so busy or so big that they've maybe forgotten how they got to the size that they are. And now they're giving it to other people. Well, just because you give it to other people doesn't mean you have that free pass to say, I no longer am responsible for that because my assistant's helping with that. If they drop the ball or in the end, you're still the agent that is the advertised guru or the go-to. So no matter how big you're getting, again, like you said, you just hope that you remember where you came from. You can get to that point where if it gets so frustrating and so stressful, you could talk to their broker, but you also want to do all you can to come together because it reflects on the transaction.
Right. No, I agree. I guess I would talk to them first about it though, before I went to their broker. But
Right. I think I've had to do that once in my 9 years at the point where it was like, it was beyond what we could do as a coming together. So I had to take it to them.
Well, I didn't really have to ever do that. I guess some of the things I'm talking about are just things where you're constantly fixing these just little things in a contract that are wrong. And like I had to have this agent initial my corrections to his work. That's what I had to do. So yeah. I guess you just live with it too.
And so now, you know, when you have a listing, unfortunately for that agent, when they send an offer in for their buyers on your listing and you have 3 other offers, in the end, it's got to be your client that makes that decision. But if they ask you, hey, if you work with any of these other agents, unfortunately now you've got this agent that has this reputation that you've held on to because of how ridiculously horrible the transaction was. Now they've not only put their business in jeopardy, but they put their buyers' potential of getting that house in jeopardy because your clients, being that they'll trust you a lot, are gonna be like, oh, okay, well, if apples to apples is here, and the only difference is Joe versus Amy, and you had a bad experience with Joe, well, then now Amy gets the house. And so I think what you're doing, and I know you've done for your clients, is making sure that they get to the finish line, even if it means you're stressing out. But now you've got your check mark next to that agent that says, all right, just know in the future that I might not be working with you.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. I really appreciated this. It was good.
Awesome. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.